Today's topic is going to be about live music venues that change and why they change, and maybe the format changes, or different management, different owners, different people involved, all of those kinds of things. So we'll dive deep into that here in a few minutes. But today is a special, important day. Today is International Coffee Day. I've got my mug that says coffee. In case I forget what was in it. It is also International Music Day. And I shared a picture of a coffee mug for to promote my show, and it said, into the studio I go to lose my mind and find my soul on this fine International Music Day. And here I am in the studio to find my soul and lose my mind. I am sure you all know that I lost my mind. And number 3, this is kind of a trifecta. It's Raccoon Appreciation Day. Today's topic was sent to me, and I'll just read exactly how it was presented to me, and then we'll dissect it. It might be a little touchy subject for some of the people that are in the local market. So word for word, could you talk about the changing of the cover band venue environment, keeping the venue happy even though the audience isn't packing the dance floor, and ideas to help the venue promote the event? So that was what was suggested, and I thought, well, let's start with that. So, live music venues that change. Just generally speaking, for one, is, venues come and go. Some of them are around for a short time, some of them are around for a really, really long time, and everything in between. The economy, all of that is going to affect a venue staying open. And guess what? Venues are in the business of making money. Or why would they do it? Why would they be in business? They're not in business to lose. I'm pretty sure every person who's watching has a job of some kind in some area. And why do you have that job? You have that job because you need to earn a living, and you need to provide for yourself and your family, or whatever your situation is, and pay for your bills. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? All of those things. And that's true with venue owners. I've hammered home this idea of being in business, and venues are in business. So business. So the number one thing that I see come up over and over again, especially when it comes with bands and playing music, is the number one problem is the venue is in business and the band is not in business. Well, Fred, here comes some of the people with the excuses. is playing in a band for many people is not a business. It's a hobby. It is something they do for fun. That's something they do occasionally, or whatever the case may be. They're not relying on playing music as their income. Okay, is that fine? Yes, of course it's fine. But that circle, what am I trying to say? That circle of people usually have a certain way of thinking and a certain attitude towards things that prohibits them from moving forward or leading to better opportunities. One thing that I've seen a lot on Facebook is a local bar that has music that had a fire, is Willie B's. I don't know a lot about the workings of Willie B's. I've been there a handful of times to see bands. It's a very small place to play, and I don't know what they pay bands. I don't know what their arrangements are. I have no idea. So I can't speak from that side of it. But, and this is not a cut on Willie B's at all, because you would have to put in all venues that are that way. You don't see the number one act in America playing at Willie B's. You don't see, well, Metallica is the first thing that comes to mind. Metallica isn't booking themselves at Willie B's. Why is that? Their career doesn't have room for that. They're so far. Now, I don't care what you think about Metallica and Lars Ulrich or any of that stuff. It was just the thing that popped in my head about world-renowned band, very successful, right? But I think places like Willie B's provide opportunity for bands to get started, gives them a chance to get some time on stage and hone their craft. But typically those bands that play there, you're not going to see on the big deck in an arena. Very unlikely that that's going to happen. Again, I don't know what the arrangement is with that place specifically, but I know that they had some kind of fire or damage or something happened with that venue that has shut them down. And then I've seen people post a lot in the last few days over what's going to become of Willie B's. Are they going to get going again? I have no idea. I have no firsthand knowledge of that situation whatsoever, although I just see people concerned. Obviously, they liked going there. They enjoyed dancing. They enjoyed the bands. They enjoyed the food. All of this stuff sounds pretty good. Well, what happens when a venue shuts down? Where do we go? Well, you have to find other alternative places for entertainment. And, you know, there's new places that pop up frequently. There's places that have been around for a while that get sold, or a different manager takes it over, or there's a name change, or there's remodeling, or whatever the case is. And sometimes people turn their nose up at change, thinking, why would they start, let's say that a venue has been more or less free to get in all the time. Now they've gone from that to charging a cover to get in. There's a reason why there's a shift in ownership, or a shift in management, or a shift in how they're doing things. Because there is the cost of doing business. What is the cost of doing business? Raise your hand if you've ever been a business owner and 100% responsible for the startup costs of that business, the cost of running that business, paying the taxes, paying everything that goes along with it. If you have employees, now you're responsible for somebody else's income, not just your own. There is a lot to go into to consider, the rent or lease on a building, or the purchase of a building and the property, liquor licenses, power bills, water bills, all the things that you possibly could imagine. The cost of stocking up supplies, food and beverages, and all of those kind of things. And then somebody to be there and run it. There's a cost to that. What that cost is exactly, I do not know. All I can do is associate that when I own my own landscaping business, buying pickups and trailers and equipment, or renting equipment and liability insurance and all of these things, and having to have a $1 million liability insurance policy in place to work at somebody's business. There's all these things to consider, it's not cheap. And so who ends up paying for all that? Well, we as the customer have to pay that in some way. So yeah, they might be charging a cover charge. I will tell you that venues are sometimes trying to find a way to be successful and provide a great environment for we as the consumer to go and enjoy ourselves. So what is the motivation to go to such a place? Oh, they have X band playing tonight. Okay, how good is X band? Fill in the blank. If the band is really great and has been around for a while and have a draw, meaning that people actually want to go see them, that's the purpose of going to that place, is to see the band, is different than the purpose of going to a place is to have some drinks and some food, and there happens to be a band there. There's a big difference between those two scenarios. So it's a venue that happens to have entertainment, or a venue that the focus is the entertainment, and then the benefit is having the drinks and food and stuff like that available. So, what categories do those venues fall into? Those are things to consider as well. If there's a change of the name, a change of the manager, upgrades in stage and lighting and those kind of things, I think those are all good things. So we as people living here can go, okay, well, this venue used to not charge a cover. Now they do, and we still want to go there. Like, you can support that business by going there and being a patron and paying the cover charge and so on and so forth. Right before I went live, I had another person pop up who lives in England. Over in the UK, he was talking about, how do you get people to support live music? That was a big question that he had, because over in England, the pandemic shut down so many venues, and to this day, there's so many of them trying to recover, and some of them won't recover at all. And he was asking if that was still the case in the United States. I have not been able to respond to him yet, but musicians want support. Well, how do you get that support? By getting people to your shows. Well, why do I want to come to your show? Because we're friends and you like us. Okay, well, that might be a reason to get me there once, maybe twice. But what does a band have to do to get people to come see them over and over and over again? All the things I've talked about over the last almost 2 years, like taking yourself serious as a musician. I've been very opinionated about the iPads on stage kind of thing. Like, how much respect do you have of yourself as a musician to be the best that you can without the crutches? I think those are good things to look at. How good is your singer? How good is your drummer? How well can you guys play the songs? If I go see a band and they play a song, and I go, wow, that's great, and then 30 seconds to a minute go by before they start the next song, that is a vibe killer, my friends. Be ready to go. Play song after song after song after song. That is how you keep the dance floor packed, is running songs into the next song, into the next song, into the next song, into the next song. And can you do that for 45 minutes to an hour, and then take a short break and do it again, and then take a short break and do it again, depending on, this is more focused on cover bands, obviously. But original bands too. If an original band's putting on an hour and a half show, make it a show. Get songs that flow together and keep that dead air from happening. So, when you're a band and you're going to go play somebody's club or venue or bar, they're taking a chance on you. That venue is taking a chance on your band. And, hopefully you use a contract like I talked about last week, and you negotiate a rate so that you can get paid, and so that there's no questions in that whole scenario. And then you go and play the show. Well, if you play the show and nobody's there, that venue might go, man, we negotiated this price with this band, we paid them, but, I lost money that night. I didn't have a full house to sell drinks and food and pay for the band, and there was no money collected as a cover charge because, we had 5 people show up. That is a business killer. That is a business killer. And you don't want that to happen. So you got to make sure that your band is great. You got to make sure that your promotional material is in line and that you're promoting that show. Let's go back to this person's, let me reread it again, because it was requested I talk about changing of the cover band venue environment, keeping the venue happy even though the audience isn't packing the dance floor. So that's kind of where we are in this discussion right now, is keeping the venue happy even though the audience isn't packing the dance floor. Okay, so your band's playing, and it's not heavily attended, and so that makes a business owner nervous, right? They agreed to pay your band however much that is, hundreds of dollars, $1,000, $2,000, I don't know. That's for you to decide and work out. The business owner's probably, the venue owner's probably not that thrilled about the situation. So that's kind of a hard one to answer. But if the club owner, this is another thing to work out possibly in the contract. And you can look at track records of venues too. Like, do venues promote the shows that are happening where you're playing? That's a really good thing to investigate. Do they have social media pages, and are they promoting the shows that are happening there? And if so, how are they promoting them? And is there anything that's tying those bands back to their page? Do they have a website that they're promoting or using as promotion? Do they have a reader board outside the club that says, October 6th, X band playing, get your tickets now? Like, how long have they been doing that? I will tell you, what was it? Ironwood. Ironwood has this, well, it's not Ironwood anymore, it's Heritage, so maybe it's different, but I remember, because Iron was out there on not State Street, Glenwood. They had like a marquee board, and they had some date for some band playing, and it had been up there for 6 months. That's bad form on a venue to not stay up to date with how they're promoting their music. So these things kind of go hand in hand, right? So is the venue helping promote the show, and are you helping promote the show? And so you have a harmonious relationship, because them promoting the show and you promoting the show is going to benefit you and the venue, because they want to try to get as many people there as possible. Mark says, new material, change up your song selections, do different things so people want to see what you're doing next. Yeah, absolutely, because if you're a really great band and you're playing and you're performing, but your set list never changes, the regulars get a little worn out on doing that. I've suggested to bands I played in before, the cover band situation, is if a cover band learned one new song a month, that's 12 songs that cycle through in a year. That's 12 songs adds up to one complete set. And I think, as a person that's busy drumming and I've got a lot of stuff going on, that is way easier to work in than it is to go, what, we're tired of playing these songs. Let's learn 15 or 20 new songs before next week. So you end up learning 15 or 20 songs that aren't very well put together, versus just learn one new one a month and cycle that into your rotation. And that constantly gives the band something to work on, and you have a new song to play occasionally. And it depends on how busy your band is too. So, if you're really good, your phone's going to ring a lot more. Your email's going to have more inquiries. You're going to get more messages about how you create a demand for your band by how good you are. I've been reading this book called Finding the Groove. It's by Jeremy Steinkohler, who is a drummer in the San Francisco area. And he was sharing about doing this jazz trio. And I think he said he was playing in New York, kind of busking. And they'd been out there for a long time. I'm pretty sure this was in New York, because that's where he's from, that area. Now lives in San Francisco. These three guys, and I think Jeremy said he was like 20 years old or something when this happened. So it was he and I think 2 saxophone players. They were just playing freeform type jazz stuff on the streets. And, people are just walking by, not really paying attention. And some construction workers had just gotten off work and were walking by. And so his story says that these 4 construction guys were hanging out, and they were just blown away by how good these 3 were playing this jazz music, and kind of bummed for them that nobody was really paying attention. And so one of the guys went out and started clapping his hands and kind of got in front of the band and kind of turned around to them and said, just go with it. And this guy got everybody that was near clapping until they had about 200 people surrounding them. And this went on for probably about 15 minutes, where this random person got the crowd energized, and that made the band feel great. Excuse me, man, my voice is gone. What just happened here? Excuse me. And then once the construction workers were like, yeah, and they took their hat and they collected about $200 in tips for these guys. And once that happened, they kind of waved goodbye and they left. And after they did that, then the crowd eventually dispersed and went away. And Jeremy was talking to the other guys who was playing music, and they said, wow, what just happened? And somebody in the band, I don't know if it was Jeremy or somebody else he was playing with, said, that's called entertainment. So somebody got in front of the band and got the crowd energized and excited about what was happening. And because this excitement was happening, then people were sticking around and people were willing to put a few bucks in the hat. And those guys had a nice little chunk of change from busking. And but it was short-lived, because as soon as those guys took off, then the entertainment value went down. So to Mary's point is, like, if you're going to play, you got to be entertaining. You got to be engaged with the audience. That's how you keep the dance floor packed. That's how you keep the venue owner happy with what's happening. What are you providing as a band to do your part? And, promotion. How you promote's really important. And I had probably 5 different people in this what should I talk about thing mention different aspects of how to promote your band. And so I will get to those things over the next few weeks, but so much of this stuff is fits together like one big puzzle. How well are you promoting your band? How great are your pictures? Do you look like you're in a band, or do you look like that you're at a shopping spree at Walmart with your friends? I would say more often than not, when I see band pictures taken, and other than it says in the post, hey, check out my new band, I would have thought you were just taking a picture at somebody's party. There's nothing that when I look at that, I go, oh, that's a band, without even having to read anything. Like, what makes you stand out? What makes you go, oh, that's a band? Without even, we scroll. We scroll until something catches our eye. And when something catches our eye, we might back down and go, what is that? And we might hover there for a moment, and then we keep scrolling. So if I'm scrolling along and all of a sudden a picture of Soundgarden pops up, I stop, and because I'm interested in Soundgarden, I want to know. And so I might go, on this day 30 years ago, Soundgarden did this or whatever. I'm a Matt Cameron fan, so if I see Matt Cameron pop up in my news feed, it's just because I saw a picture of him first without even reading the text. So make sure your band photos are something that catches your eye and says, oh, this is a band. It's not like, oh, here we are in the parking lot at Walmart and loading the groceries in our car, because that's what a lot of band photos look like. And maybe there's one person in the band that made an attempt to look like they're in a band. I don't mean you got to dye your hair red and have piercings all over and tattoos. You could just look like a skateboarder. I don't know. But something that says I'm in a band. And some band photos that are pet peeves of mine are bands and railroad tracks. I don't know why or how that ever became an association with bands to take pictures at the railroad tracks. I don't get it. So avoid those. I don't remember if it was a picture of a local band or something I just happened to see online. Maybe it's somebody's I was friends with said, check out my friend's band. But they literally took a photo in the backyard of their house, and there's just junk and kids' toys everywhere. And in the foreground was dog poop. And they were using that to promote their band. And I just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed when I saw that photo. And obviously they didn't catch it. Unless they wanted it to be there, I don't know. But, there's so many simple things that are easy to help the face of your band being presented to the public. Like, how professional is that? You got to have that together. You just do. Or you're never going to get out of the little neighborhood bars that are tucked in all over America where you go and play once every 3 to 6 months or something like that. I've also witnessed, just personally and doing these shows for 94 episodes now, that the bands that tend to complain the most about how unfair things are the exact bands I'm talking about. That they don't care about taking a good photo. They play in the neighborhood bar somewhere for maybe they're doing it for a percentage of the door or the bar sales, or how do you monitor that? That's goes back to the contract thing from last week. But I've seen bands where, they're splitting $50 amongst 4 or 5 people. Well, if you're getting paid $50 and there's 5 of you, that means all of you got paid $10. And not only did you have the 3 to 4 hours of time invested in actually performing, how about the hour and a half of setup before and the hour of tear down at night and then the drive there and back? It's, you're giving yourself away. So those are all things to consider. I guess the last thing this person said were ideas to help the venue promote the event. Okay, there's an important word, event. Why is it an event? What makes what you're doing an event? Is it tied in with St. Patrick's Day or Valentine? Is there a holiday that this show is connected to? Those could be good things. Those could be really good things. But what makes it an event on a day where it's not a holiday? It's just a regular Friday or Saturday night, or even more difficult, a Monday or Tuesday night. Like, how do you get people to go out at the beginning of the week to see you? Typically speaking, a lot of bars don't have entertainment at the beginning of the week because it's probably historically harder to get people out. Unless you're a national touring band and you're playing arenas. Then people are going to go, well, this is my only chance to see this band within the next 4 years, so I'm going to go to that. So that's where you got to get creative with your promotion stuff to make something an event, other than it's just like Slim and the Sticks or whatever the band name is. Like, does your band name even create curiosity for somebody to pay attention to that? I don't know. I think your band name can be important on whether people come and see you or not. There's a band, and the name of the band is Bowling for Soup. Now, I think that they're probably a pretty popular band. I know zero about the band other than the name. And every time I hear the name Bowling for Soup come along, I just laugh. And I have never once, in all the years hearing that name, went, oh, I'm really curious to check that band out. Now, that's just me. But something about that band name doesn't make me want to check them out. Okay, so that's a Fred Fisher ism, I guess. Now, when you hear of a band and their band name is Marilyn Manson, that's something that catches your ear. Now, I'm not saying go change your band name to Marilyn Manson or something similar, but I'm just saying when I heard that, that sounded dangerous, so to speak. And then you see a picture of the band, and then now you're really curious because it is so over the top that how can you not want to investigate what this is, right? So Marilyn Manson, Bowling for Soup, 2 pretty extreme sounding band names, right? How many words are in your band name? There was a band, well, I think they're still around, but the name of the band is this, And You Will Know Us by the Trail of Dead. That is a really long band name. So I think they just go by Trail of Dead for short. But again, it's one of those band names where maybe they can get away with it because there's a certain amount of curiosity that's tied with when you hear, and you will know us by the Trail of Dead. Like, what does that mean? What style of band is it? I don't know. I have to check this out and see what this is all about. I think Death Cab for Cutie was another band name that really interests me. And not only that, it interests me so much that when I heard them, I was blown away by how great they were. Death Cab for Cutie. Good stuff. So be careful in how you name your band, and you know, the band logo, can you read it? Does it make sense? All of these things are worth considering when you're promoting. Again, ideas to help the venue promote the event. That's where you got to have clear communication again, over and over and over. Having really clear communication is going to save you all the time. So when you're booking the band with the venue, discuss how the show is going to be promoted, or in this case, this person used the word event. Event tells me that this is something special, something more special than just a regular night. You know, are you going to have some kind of giveaway? There was a touring band from Michigan that I was friends with for a while that told me they would try to turn their shows into some kind of an event all the time, and they got known for traveling the Midwest by giving away thrift store junk. So they might go into a thrift store and buy a crummy bicycle for $20 or a bowling ball or something of that nature, and they would say, tonight's giveaway is a bicycle, and they would raffle it off. And so it was like a couple bucks or $5 to enter this raffle, and the band would make $500, $1,000 raffling off a $20 bicycle from the thrift store. Or they would have a drinking game if it was a bar or something, and if you won the drinking game, you won this bowling ball. Like, there was something else entertaining that was happening to help make this thing a success. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody run out and scavenge the thrift stores for junk. I'm just telling you that that's what worked for this band from Michigan, that they did this. So again, I'll just repeat, like, the number one problem is the venue is in business and the band is not. So you got to start have more forward business-minded thinking in order to make yourself successful. And that's regardless of what venue you're playing. It seems to me that musicians and bands they look at themselves last. They want to blame everything else. They want to blame the venue. They want to blame the city. They want the city, not the city as an organization, but the town that they live in. They want to blame their location. They want to have all this blame as to why they can't get gigs, or why they can't get people to show up, or why they can't get the venue to pay them a decent wage, or whatever it is. Well, what value are you bringing to the table? What makes you so much more important that the venue should bend over backwards to help you? Those are the things to look at. You got to look at yourself first. The producer says, whoa, a lot. Oh, let me see if I can read this quickly. In chapter 8 of Mary's dissertation here, the great thing about Willie B's is that he was very welcoming of small acts and new bands. Yes, I heard that too. Getting their feet wet and building a fan base. I always loved playing there, and it's sad that they had the fire might and may not open back up. Not every club owner is a musician or gets what it's like to perform and what all is involved, knowing how to play, learning the songs, etc. They're not supportive in that respect. Another comment came in and made me jump. Okay, so they're not going to consider those things when you're negotiating a rate with them. You have to present your band in a way that will show you have something to offer the club and can help the club make money. Cover charges help with this. I know people don't like suddenly paying a charge when it had been free. Whoa, more comments coming in. This is jumping around. Okay, I know people don't like the sudden paying, but that money helps pay the band. And if the band only brings 30 or 40 people into a 300 plus club, that protects the club owner from paying a bunch of money out to a band who didn't bring in the numbers. Also, if you're having trouble packing the floor, don't be shy to ask a trusted friend, whether they're a musician or not, what they think of your show or the songs. Good choices. Are they played perfectly? Are you entertaining, engaging the crowd? Are you doing any sort of research on what it takes to be successful as a band? And are you all on the same page within the band on what needs to happen to be successful and entertaining? Are you genuine on stage? Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that Mary just said. So one thing that I thought of as far as keeping the dance floor packed, some cover bands, I would say, have too much variety in what they offer. And so they're kind of all over the map with what songs they're playing. And I think that can be confusing to the audience. So if you're a classic rock band, then be a classic rock band. Like, stay within a certain framework of what you're offering. And if you're a band that is wanting to have people dance, then you got to consider the tempo of the songs and consider, hey, is this a song that I would actually dance to? Is this going to make me get up and go, oh, I love this song and I want to dance? So all those things are to consider when you're putting your set list together. Are those things? And yeah, just like Mary said at the end, like, is everybody in the band on the same page? Are you all in agreement of how you're going to do this? And how and why? The bands that are in alignment with each other, they seem to be the ones that really pick up steam and have success. Thomas said, should bands try to name themselves based off of the genre in which they want to play? So like a country singer might use their first name and last name, but then a metal band will have some kind of grotesque sounding name. Yeah, that's typically the case, Thomas. So I play with Cliff Miller. A lot of times it's referred to as the Cliff Miller Band. But yeah, so we just use Cliff's name as the band name. It's his name that's on the marquee, not mine, which is different than playing in Midline, which Midline is a force of the four of us all together, where with Cliff Miller, not that this is the case necessarily, but people are going to go see Cliff Miller because guess what? It's Cliff Miller. They're not going to see Cliff Miller necessarily because, oh, who the drummer is or the bass player or fiddle player or anything like that. I mean, outside of maybe some friends and family, I'm not the selling point for Cliff Miller. Cliff Miller is the selling point for Cliff Miller. So yeah, a lot of times country acts, it's the main person. Garth Brooks, for example, Reba McEntire, Dolly Parton, on and on and on and on. That doesn't mean country, obviously there's country acts out there that have a band name. But yes, hopefully that answers your question. Recently I've been kind of let down with really loving a particular band, and I have to put my glasses on. This is where Mary's going to say, you need your computer. Loving a particular band, and then when I see them live, the lead singer or somebody in the band has the worst attitude that I didn't expect them to have, and I loved listening to them for years, so it's a little frustrating and shocking. Yeah, I too have experienced that, Thomas. So you can fall in love with the band. It doesn't matter if they're a national band or if they're a local band or a regional band. Somehow you discover them and you hear them play music and you're like, oh, I want to check them out. And then you go see them live and you're like, what was that? The singer has a crappy attitude, or maybe the singer can't even sing. It's just all there can be a lot of reasons for that. I've been part of a touring band and been on the road for a while, several times. And sometimes you have days where you just are not in the mood. As I laugh, can you imagine me, smiley, laughy guy, not in the mood? It has happened. It's happened. And so sometimes the audience doesn't know why, somebody in the band might look like they're having a bad day. The other side of that coin is like when that person gets on stage, is them trying to remind themselves why they're there, and people are paying good money to see them. So maybe they need to snap out of it for that hour to 2 hours or however long they need to play. And maybe they should stay backstage and out of sight of people and things like that. So sometimes you got to put on a smiley face, even though you don't feel like being smiley. But yes, and then sometimes there's just crummy singers who've been fixed in production. When they did a recording, you can do all kinds of trickery to make. I could sing something and Mary could put it in the computer and pitch correct me all over the place, and then I sound like I have some kind of gift in singing, but I would never be able to reproduce that properly live. I'm not a singer. I'm never going to be a singer. I wish I could. I wish, but not going to happen. James says, all bars, clubs are not the same, nor are all the bands. Yes, true. Bars are not in the music business. Also true. Although many offer opportunities for live music. Most bars would make money spinning discs versus having bands. Yes, 100% true. I feel it's up to the bands to give the club a reason to hire and not give any expectations going in. Cover bands versus original music is a completely different argument. Yep to all of that. Yeah, and James, you might have showed up late, but I did mention some of that stuff when I initially started talking, is that, there's bars and they exist to sell drinks and maybe food, and they could have music playing in the background. And Mary said the same thing. And then maybe they have entertainment as like something that's happening in the background. People aren't going there because there's a band. And then there's other bars that showcase having bands. Just like James said, not all bars are the same or any of that. So yeah, all of this stuff is so intertwined and tangled together that by and large it comes down to the individual and each club specifically standing alone and what they're doing. And so that's for us musicians to navigate around and to figure out. But I've hammered home this idea of being professional, be professional, be professional, be in business, be in business, be in business. Communication, having great communication, all of that stuff is so important. Leaving things to chance is by and large a disappointment pretty much every time. Because we start to assume in our minds that things are going to go a certain way, and then they don't go that way, and then because they don't, then you're disappointed and you have a bad gig because you just dreamed up in your mind that, oh, we're gonna pack this place and it's gonna be great, and the bar owner's gonna love us, and they're gonna hand us stacks of cash, and not that couldn't happen, but what are you going to do to make that happen? It's just like James said, it's up to the bands to make it happen. And Mary said, club owners aren't in the music business. And I think James said the exact same thing. They're not in the music business. They're in the bar business. So if you're in the music business, then be in the music business. Do it. Figure it out. We have this thing called the internet at our fingertips. It's easy to find information. It is. James says, Mary's band is a great example of a band that has created a guaranteed crowd for a club. Yes, 100%. 100%. Here's the cool thing about Casio Dreams. Casio Dreams was an idea put together by Jeff Poole, my buddy drummer Jeff Poole. He got the right people involved with his band, which includes the producers singing. uh, 80s pop tribute band. So the name, as Thomas was asking earlier, the name goes hand in hand with the music that they're playing. Casio Dreams. Casio being Casio keyboards, which was hugely popular in the 80s. And then Dreams. 80s pop synth tribute band. All of their music that they play fits within that description of what they do. Then they're very good at performing those songs. Very good. How do they look? They look like they just walked out of 1985 with the clothes that they wear and the makeup that Mary wears. And all their promotion material is tied into the 80s. It's all 80s themed. You're never going to see a Casio Dreams picture of them standing in a broken down, abandoned warehouse with railroad tracks. It's not going to happen. It is all going to be 80s themed, okay? When Casio Dreams perform, it's like getting into the DeLorean time machine. And in fact, they've played a show at the Knitting Factory where they had a DeLorean and Marty and Doc. It was a big event. An event. It's as soon as you hear those songs and you hear them perform those songs and they're performed so well, you're in a time machine. You're immediately transported back to a time in your life that you loved. So, yeah, they have so much going on for them in their marketing, the way they look, the way they perform, and people respond to that. And they pack the clubs. I think they've sold out the Knitting Factory a handful of times, even doing their own shows. Can your band do that? It's a good question to ask. Now, do you have to be an 80s synth pop tribute band to make that happen? No, you don't. You have to be really great at what you do and how you market yourself and how you present yourself. It's really important. It's really important. And I run across people all the time who think they got it figured out, but they don't. They don't. I'm sorry. Because the proof is in the pictures I see of your band, and there's 10 people. Yep, I said it. I said it.